the last several weeks, I think 8 weeks, we've been talking about 7 principles in presenting a wise and effective appeal. All of us have authority over us. The husband, the Bible says Christ is his headship. And the wife, the husband is her headship. The children, the parents are the headship. The boss on the job, the servant is underneath him. He's the employee. He's the employer. You're the employee, or vice versa, whatever you might be. But everybody has authority over them. As we know, we see things that the authorities may need to see, but they can't see. They need someone to present to them a wise and effective appeal concerning a decision they're making or a direction that they're going to go. You got to learn how to make those appeals wisely, and you want to be effective. And the last one that we're looking at, we've got 2 more. I'm sorry. Use appropriate words to present your appeal. Use appropriate words when making your appeal. Think about what you're saying. Think about how you're saying it. Use the right words. Does my appeal begin with positive statements that I can express with sincerity? In other words, when you're making an appeal, you got to sandwich this thing with positive statements, okay? And then will I say these are my personal convictions and thus avoid condemning my authority who may not hold to those convictions? In other words, your authority might be leading you to violate your own convictions. You don't want to go to him and say, hey, convictions are these. Maybe he's not saved. Many times they're not saved. We can't hold them to our convictions. But when we appeal to them, we'll say something like this again. These are my personal convictions, and it's very difficult for me to violate those biblical convictions. I would ask that you would not ask me to do this or be a part of that. The 7th and last principle of presenting a wise and effective appeal is this: respond correctly if your appeal is rejected. And you understand that you may not get your way, okay? Respond correctly though, okay? Remember, your response to an appeal that is rejected will reveal your true attitude about the situation. So your boss may be not allowing your appeal to see how you're going to respond to it. Make sure you respond to the appeal, even if it's rejected, because it's going to reveal really who you are to him. A gracious response not only will be a proper testimony, it also may prompt your authority to reconsider the appeal. You walk in, present your appeal, you tell them, they say no. How you respond? Say a young person goes to the parents, I'd like to go to the football game. The dad says, no, not tonight. And you throw a fit. Guess what? It confirms that you're not trustworthy to even go to the football game. But if you respond properly, you don't go that night, that evening, you give yourself to your family, you don't go off in your room and cry and act like a baby about it, then guess what happens? Your parents see that, okay? If your appeal is accepted, you should express genuine gratitude. I'm so thankful that you would be willing to listen to my appeal to you. Thank you so much. Be sure to follow through with any commitments or offers that you made in your appeal. In other words, you might say, this is what I think we ought to do. And if we do this, I'm willing to do more and help it to fulfill what my appeal is to you. In other words, your appeal he might think, I don't have time for that. I don't know way I cannot organize that. Well, then you know what you could do? You could say, I will take the blunt. I will take the load of it, okay? And lastly, today, as we finish this series, is serve your authorities well as unto the Lord. I can't express to you the importance of you serving, being a servant to your authorities. The Bible talks about that the greatest in the kingdom are those that serve, that get underneath and lift up. And if your life, when you come to work, when you're doing your job, and your boss sees that your service is really for their well-being and for their success also, then listen, I want to tell you something. God, the Bible says, if you'll humble yourself, God will exalt you. God will exalt you in due season, in due time. God will lift you up. And I don't think you ought to do it for this reason. Your motive is not so, it's all going to be for me. But God promises that if you'll become a humble servant under your authorities, that God will lift you up. I mean, listen, I'm going to go through this again. Children, to your parents, you submit to them. be humble, serve your mom and dad. So when you make an appeal, they know it's not just about you. Wives, submit to your husbands, serve him well, walk in humility underneath his leadership. Men, listen to me. Your wife and your children are humbling themselves under you. You got to learn how to do what? Be a servant. Demonstrate servanthood to your pastor, to your boss. Demonstrate servanthood and be humble, and God will lift you up. And then you can make an appeal to all of your authorities and know that if it's of the Lord, then you'll have your way. But now, again, they may not go your way. And if it's not a violation of your scriptural principles and convictions, then you obey them. But if it violates scriptural principles and biblical convictions, then you make a humble appeal, and you've got to stick to the Lord's path of doing what He said was right. As Peter did, he says, we got to do what God says more than men appeal to us to do. So I hope these things help you in your next time of making an appeal to your authorities.